Good evening. My name is Michael Sawyer, and today we'll be looking at the Osborne High School EOCT data breakdown. The first thing we're looking at is the background information on Osborne High School. You can see, according to the GOSA, the current enrollment is right about, actually in 2012 and 13 it was about 1,800, but in this school year, the 2013-2014, we're actually pushing almost 2,200. Osborne is a Title I high school. You can see, according to the demographic breakdown with the pie chart as well as the demographics to the left, Osborne has about 50% Hispanic, 39% African American, 7% white, and the other two percentiles are Asian as well as Native American, Pacific Islander, or does not specify. And you see at Osborne High School there is actually an 82% of the students qualify for free or reduced lunch. So looking at the consolidated data for the EOCT overall, all the subject areas that were tested from the years 2012, 2013, that was last year, you can see a great discrepancy in geometry, a lot of the math, but the one we're really going to be looking at today is going to be the U.S. history. You can see the blue down here is the exceeds, the orange is the meets, and the green is the does not meet. So overall, Osborne is doing okay, but they can obviously do a lot better. So like I mentioned, the purpose of this slide is to show and explain the EOCT strengths and weaknesses at Osborne, but really looking at the U.S. history portion. This presentation will break down overall scores by not only the whole scores, but the gender, as well as scores for students with and without disabilities. So the first data we're looking at is the overall data for the U.S. history EOCT for the students at Osborne over a 5-year period. Right now we're looking at a bar graph of the overall scores for the past 5 years of U.S. history EOCTs. First looking at is the exceed, which will be the blue, the meet, which is the red, and the did not meet, which is the green. The first, looking at this data right here, there are a lot of positives to take away from the bar graphs. When looking at the graphs themselves, though, the one that draws the most attention is the green, just because it's the highest percentage, even though that is the did not meet. But you can see over the 5-year span, in 2008, the did not meet percentage was at 68%, and by 2013, the did not meet was at 42%. So obvious trend of these is if the did not meet goes down, obviously two are going up. And the two are going up, it's obviously the meets and exceeds. You can see over the 5-year period, the meet is going from 27 to 40, but the biggest gains would be in the exceeds, from the 5% all the way to 18% of the students meeting or exceeding, which, over a 5-year period, that's pretty good. So the next data we'll be looking at is going to be comparing different genders at Osborne, obviously males versus females, and then we're going to look at the gender breakdown for other South Cobb schools. That's going to be Osborne, obviously, Campbell, and then South Cobb. These 3 high schools are the 3 main schools in the South Cobb area. So we're looking at the line graph right here, and the line graph shows the average scores of male and female students who did not meet and exceed. Obviously, did not meet, is in blue, the meet is in red, and the exceed is in green over the past 5 years. You can see the male students and the female students. This is at Osborne, by the way, and you can see the trends as the just like the overall trends. You get as the did not meet goes down, the meet and exceed happens to increase. One of the biggest gains you can see here, is one of the between the two breakdowns is the females. In 2008, the score they did not meet for females at Osborne was 75%. In this past year, they cut it down by 30%, up to 47% did not meeting, which in my opinion is pretty good. So now we're looking at comparing the male and female students breakdown of the three high schools in the South Cobb region of Osborne, Campbell, and South Cobb. Excuse me. On the slide, you'll see the breakdown of the gender comparing the three schools in the close proximity of the southern region over the 2-year period of 2011, 2013. Examining the data for both the males and the females has very comparable meet percentages. However, Osborne's exceed percentages is a little lower than both Campbell and South Cobb. Besides the lower exceed numbers, all the results are fairly comparable. I chose to look at this breakdown within the different schools to see if there's a commonality among the three schools, because they're so very similar in the demographics. So what can we take away from the comparisons? First, Osborne has the lowest tested population of the three schools. However, they've made the biggest gains of the three schools. Campbell sits there, and their exceeded percentages for both males and females are the most consistent. And then South Cobb has the highest exceed percentage between the three schools. But why? One reason I believe that Campbell and South Cobb have a slightly higher meet and exceed percentage is a simple fact that both Campbell and South Cobb have magnet schools associated with them. This obviously will ultimately produce higher scores in the long run. And unfortunately, a lot of these students that go to the South Cobb and Campbell magnet schools would normally go to Osborne. So that's just something to put in the back of your mind. So looking at the overall gender breakdown for social studies, on this slide we have the gender breakdown for all subjects, and you can see that they're all very, very, very comparable to the social studies, U.S. history. We looked at this just to kind of see, is there a difference in different grades, or different subjects between the genders? And it's not. They are actually very, very comparable in all stats, the male and females. The last data we're looking at will be the overall data of the U.S. history for students with and without disabilities over a 5-year period. We're looking at pie graphs here. First, with students with disabilities and without. Here we go, with disabilities over here on the left, and without. And this, right off the bat, you really can't tell. These graphs are a little misleading, so I'm actually going to show you a line graph that can be seen to try to show the disparity between the students with and without disabilities. Percentages of students obviously is the blue is the did not meet, red is the meet, and the green is the exceeds. Looking at the line graph of the data, you can see that both the students with and without disabilities have made substantial gains over the past 5 years. And that is a very good trend to have, and I believe that this trend will continue. So this right here is the overall data of all subject areas, not just U.S. history, with disabilities and without disabilities. And you can tell that, again, the students with disabilities are having trouble taking the test. That's just unfortunately a thing we have to live with, and that we are striving to work better at, though. So what can we gather from this data? First thing after viewing the data, are there gains being made at Osborne? And the answer is yes. It can be seen throughout the previous three data that over the past 5 years, massive gains have been made. Again, does gender perform better than which gender performs better. And again, there's not a gender that performs better. They both, male and female, are very close in comparison to each other. And lastly, how does Osborne compare to other schools in the area? They're right on par, if not better, if you think that the two schools in comparison both have IB magnet programs attached to them. And lastly, are there gains being made in the special ed department? And the answer is yes. The special ed department is working harder each day to improve the overall scores. So the next question is, how or why are these gains being made? So possible reasons for the overall increases in the EOCT pass rates. I kind of break it down into three things. The first is content structure change, turnover in teachers, and the end of choice school. The first conclusion that we can made is that the U.S. history content structure has become much more organized over the past 4 or 5 years. The current U.S. history structure is in a 5-domain system that flows very well. All the domains have aligned as well as created tests from released EOCT questions that better prepare the students for that, obviously, the end of course test, the EOCT. The second reason that can be discussed and has been discussed by a lot of the higher ups is that the crop of teachers that are currently working at Osborne have been more rigorous or been putting more stress on the test in the past. And lastly, the last thing, excuse me, is the ending of choice schools, which allows students to attend the choice school is allowing students to attend different schools if they could provide transportation, which greatly, obviously, impacted the EOCT scores at Osborne. With the end of that, now some of the students that were once able to leave because of choice currently now attend Osborne, which increases their test scores in their pass rate. However, this may change again. Georgia put a new bill in the House Bill 251, which allows students to again offer choice school. So how can we continue to improve? Trying to wrap this up. So the big question is, how can we continue to improve these scores? The first thing is keeping the students, keeping the same hardworking teachers in place, and continue to have these teachers strive for greatness. There's always been a need for improvement. However, keeping the rigor intense among these teachers and this motto of the cream will always rise at the top, where the best teachers are going to continue to strive and do better, as well as the rigor of attrition could help out weed out some of the lesser teachers. Second, to improve the scores of the students with special needs. A process that I have started or implemented in my U.S. history classroom is what's called front loading the vocabulary and content. I do this with a method of a use of word walls as well as thinking maps to make the students more aware of terms per unit. And then I'll give them notes over the materials. And once the front loading process is done, we continue with lots of hands-on activities as well as graphic organizers to make sure the content is thoroughly covered. And then lastly, the progress has been good so far and can only get better. So just keep on working and strive for greatness. And I end you today just giving you thank you very much and to keep on striving for greatness.